This is the KitchensinkWP Podcast, episode 268.
I program my own computer.
We have a server crash, 404 error, page not found, links aren't working, system is crashing, system is crashing, system is crashing.
Your old HTML website, barely alive. We have the technology. We have WordPress. A new website, better than it was before. Better, stronger, faster. We have the technology. The technology.
Why, hello everybody, this is Adam Silver, the host of the KitchensinkWP Podcast. Thanks for being here. Let's get started. All right, upcoming events, I'm excited. Next week, only one WordCamp. It is in Japan, WordCamp Haneda, April 20th through 21st. If you're in town, you should go. I know my friend Alex Vazquez and Matt Mullenweg were both there a couple weeks back, and they ran into each other randomly. If they're still there, maybe they're going to WordCamp, Japan, Haneda, I don't know. Okay, segment one, moving on here. In the news, only one thing to talk about here. There was a plugin that had a security vulnerability, Duplicate Page plugin, which is a plugin I've used many a time, actually. I use it quite often. It has been fixed. Sakuri did a review on it, and it released information was going on, so there's a link in the show notes there. It's been fixed, like I said. Version 3.4 takes care of it. If you have not updated that plugin, if you use Duplicate Page plugin, you're going to want to go ahead and update that. All right, moving on to this week's meat and potatoes segment 2. The topic this week is the NDA and you. 5 things you should know about an NDA before signing. So about 2 weeks ago, I was asked to sign an NDA by a client for a potential job to just build out the site. So not to confuse the matter, but in this case, the client is not mine directly. So my agency is being hired by the designer to build the site. The designer owns the relationship, if you will. So this, of course, could add complexity to the project. So who do I deal with? Who's the point of contact for us? Who's paying me? And yes, I am very aware of red flags here, as I've done episodes in the past about red flags. So let's just say my radar is on high alert. Okay. But with that in mind, I'm open to reviewing NDAs. And I told both the client and their client to send the review, to send the NDA, and I would review it. I didn't say I'd sign it, but I would review it, because experience, my dear listener, is just that. It's experience. I've learned a lot in the past year or two in this version of what I'm doing. So, first disclaimer here, I am not a lawyer. My mom wishes I was. That said, I recommend in hiring a professional, a lawyer, someone with that degree, because, I'm not one. So my advice is just that. It's advice, but it's not legal based per se. Okay. So hire someone if you get to this point where you need an actual attorney. So moving forward, what is an NDA? So an NDA stands for a non-disclosure agreement. It's a contract to keep a secret. An NDA agreement is often used when two companies want to meet to discuss a joint opportunity involving the exchange of confidential information. As in with many contracts, both parties must receive a benefit, and this benefit is called a consideration. Okay, that's the definition. Additionally, in doing research on this and sharing this, a lot of the issues in my research have to come with IP ownership, IP standing for intellectual property. Okay, and that's the issue of possible finances and the business model. So is it just the idea? Is it all of it? It depends, right? So it's all that consideration. Okay, so the 5 things you want to kind of keep your radar up on when you review these NDAs. Number 1, look for broad and vague language. When reviewing the NDA, make sure that the definitions of the property and confidential information are clearly and thoroughly defined. Be really skeptical of broad and vague language, because then you're not sure what you can or can't talk about. It limits your ability to discuss it. Okay, so be skeptical of broad and vague language. Number 2, understand the document, the NDA, the scope. The key here is, what is the NDA asking you to keep confidential, and for how long? Is it financials? Is it the IP? Is it for 1 year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years? It's hard to say. Well, it's not hard to say. You want to make sure that you understand how long and what is it supposed to be kept confidential. Number 3, in case of a breach, okay, not a breach birth, but a breach of something that you share accidentally, be wary of unusual, extreme, or unfair punishments, I guess is the best way to say it. If you breach it, what is the consequences of that? Is it proportional to the punishment? Is it people within your purview as well? Like if I sub out the concierge side of things, people below me, are they under that as well? So third parties is the other key here. Coworkers and other employees, right? So be very wary of unfair punishments for breaching. So that you can be liable for $1 million may not be realistic. So just be careful on that as well. Just be wary of it. Number 4, this is my favorite one. I'll explain why in a second. You can ask for changes. Don't be afraid to ask or modify or alter the document terms if you think if something is unfair or out of place. This is exactly what I did. I actually did speak to two attorneys, one in California, one here in North Carolina. And primarily, the reason I did that is because there were many sections of the NDA that I looked at that just were not going to work for us whatsoever. And I pushed back. I said, look, change these 18 things, yes, 18, and ask for some clarification, and we can go forward. If not, then I guess it's not the right fit. I sent those in. They've actually come back, and they agree to all of them. So you can ask for changes. The worst they can say is no. And then if they say no, it's on you to say, well, I'm going to walk away or pass on this opportunity. Okay. And the 5th one, go with your gut, really truthfully here. I was open with the idea of I'll review it. If it works, great. If it doesn't, okay. If something in the NDA doesn't seem right, if it seems suspicious, it probably is. And that's where I go back to have an attorney check it over, right? It may seem like an expense, an inconvenience. It may delay the project, but you're a professional, are you not? So you should treat this as a profession as well. So keep that in mind. Okay, so again, number 1, look for broad and vague language. Number 2, understand the document scope as far as what you need to keep confidential and for how long. In case of breach, what is the punishment? Ask for changes, push back. If you don't like something, say, hey, remove paragraph 4, section 2, subsection 3, and cross those out and change that out. Number 5, go with your gut. If it doesn't feel right, it may not be right. Just that simple. Really is that simple. Again, I'm not a lawyer. And actually, I was thinking about this. I had an attorney on the show back on episode 103. David Sparks came on, one of the most popular episodes I've ever had. Based on analytics. I may try to get him back on, or I may have another attorney come on, and we'll talk about some more legal things like contracts, NDAs, scope of work, stuff like that. So I think that might be something I'm going to work for this coming up sooner than later, hopefully. So that's it. Yeah, so that's it. So again, NDAs, are they worth it? They can be. They protect the owner of the content and the IP, but if you want the job... Oh, and in this case... I wonder, I haven't signed anything yet. So I pushed back because there was an anti-compete clause in there for 10 years. So it was kind of weird. And it was pretty broad in the definition of anti-compete. So we've taken that out and we're moving forward. So there you go. Okay, that is it for that. Moving on to segment 3, the tip and tool of the week. This week's tip is it's a website called Email Extractor. I'll put a link in the show notes. Actually, it's called email-checker.net/email-extractor. I'll put a link in the show notes. It's really cool. You copy and paste a whole bunch of text into a box on this website, paste it in there, and you click a button, and it pulls out any email addresses. Pretty interesting, pretty cool. That way, if you're trying to help somebody, like I've been working with some nonprofits, and they have all these emails inside of correspondence. It's easy to pull the emails out and then just make a list from that. So that's what it's for. It's free over at, like I said, email-checker.net/email-extractor. I will put a link to that in the show notes. Okay, that is it for this week. If you have any questions, go ahead and send it in via email. I'm Adam@KitchensinkWP.com, or use the SpeakPipe functionality of the website. You can support the show, become a Patreon, KitchensinkWP.com/Patreon. Sponsor the show. There is a link on the form on the website. Thanks so much for listening. Go out and do some awesome things with WordPress. See you next week. Bye-bye.